Hello, everyone, and welcome to Kotlin Crew Community Talks, where we discuss all the things connected to our favorite programming language, Kotlin. Every week, I speak to people who either decided to go with that technology in their business or are developers themselves. And the latter is actually my today's guest, Martin Petrulak. Hello, Martin.
Hello, hi.
Hi, it's great to have you here. Martin is a developer working using Kotlin, both on apps and backend. So today I'll ask a few questions about that, but maybe you could make a short intro and tell us about your background as a developer and some short overview of who you actually are if it comes to development.
Sure thing. First of all, thanks for having me. I'm Martin. I'm doing mostly Android development since 2011 or 12, basically right after the university. I was working as a solo developer or independent developer, so I built a couple of apps and then they were in the store and I was earning some money from the ads. Then all these got banned by Google, so I basically get to find a job and I was working for a couple of startups. Unfortunately, all of them went bankrupt, so pretty much the same story as as with my apps. And then basically, I think it was in 2018 or 17, I started doing freelancing. And basically, that's what I'm currently doing. And I'm working for various companies. It's mostly big German companies. And as I said, it's mostly Android development. I also do some backend stuff, but I'm sort of specialized in the Android development.
Okay, interesting story and a lot of adversity actually on the way. So how did it happen that you actually started using Kotlin? When was the first time? How have you learned about it? What was the beginning?
Yes. So I think it was actually when I came to Berlin, to Germany, when I was started to work for this first startup. And it was in 2016, and I think the Kotlin just came out, and then it was obvious that our company goes bankrupt. So there was a lot of free time, and a colleague of mine was actually saying something like, hey, there is this Kotlin, maybe you want to try it out. And then I bought a book. I forgot the name, but something like Android Development with Kotlin or something.
Mm-hmm.
I read the first few chapters and then it looked pretty nice. And then I decided to migrate our code base into the Kotlin. So there is some command in Android Studio which basically migrates Java code into the Kotlin. So that's how I started. It created a lot of ugly code. And then we were basically just refactoring this code and then using actually writing Kotlin code, because usually when people start, when they are coming from Java world, they just write Java code in Kotlin, which is not the greatest. So like after some time, you just get better and better, and then you basically start writing proper Kotlin code. So that's where I used it for the first time, and actually using it ever since.
Okay, and that's actually unusual that I hear that somebody started from a book, because usually most of the people say, oh, I just Googled something about it or checked some YouTube tutorials. So you're the first person I'm talking to that referred to an actual book if it comes to learning a new programming languages. So they're not dead yet.
It's like I'm not a big book reader. I read like maybe 10 books in my life, like Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, Kotlin book, and some Arik Java book. So
at least the good ones. So it's the quality that matters.
Exactly. So I don't read that much, but sometimes like also it was with this Arik Java, like if I want to understand something that is a little bit more complicated, I just read the book or like first half of the book. So that's how I did it.
Okay, but at some point you need to start putting the things into practice, yeah? It's not enough to learn from
that's
the
best. Like you can read about anything, but if you don't put it into the practice, you will never get better, or never, like, what's the point of reading about something if you can't actually practice it?
And we're actually smoothly getting to the next point we were supposed to discuss, which is maybe some kind of advice for someone who would like to, let's say, switch from Java to Kotlin. What should be the first step? What would you recommend to somebody who comes to you and says, come on, like, I've heard Kotlin is the thing now. Everybody requires me to program in Kotlin. Every company that advertises that they're hiring a developer, they require me to know Kotlin. Where should I start?
Nowadays, I think there is so many resources online. There are blog posts, there are tutorials, there are videos, there is even a book if you want to be old school. So I think the switching is not that hard. Also, Java and Kotlin code, it looks pretty much the same. Like there are some things that look differently, but it's not that hard to understand or to switch to Kotlin. There is this thing called coroutines, which is like a different programming paradigm. So that's something you should maybe understand a little bit deeper how to use it. It's also used in Android. It's also used in backend, I guess. So this is something that a person needs to understand how this works. And yeah, like if you are existing developer, it's easier. If you are Actually, I have two friends who were not developers, and they were asking me what to do, and I told them, like, hey, be an Android developer. And both of them are now Android developers. So it's also not that hard to start if you have no experience. So
Okay.
Kotlin is also good language to learn from the beginning.
Yeah, and I also know some developers who started from Kotlin. They're new in this space, and that's the only thing they know, to be completely honest. And yeah, they develop great solutions. So it's also possible. Yeah. I checked your LinkedIn profile and I saw like a huge list of companies that you worked with. It's super impressive. Do you recall any exceptionally interesting projects that you worked on that you would like to share, obviously using Kotlin? They don't have to be like exact names of the companies, but maybe just a description of like, what was it? What was the use case for Kotlin?
Yes, I have worked for some companies, and actually, like, the project I like a lot is my own personal project. Because
was it the app that was banned?
Not that one. Actually, also this one, because like I built an app for cocktails, and it had over like 500,000 downloads, and people were loving it. But then again, Google said, like, I sort of built it as a social network so you could follow people and so on. Mm-hmm. But there was no option to like unfollow. I mean, not to unfollow, to report or block somebody, and that goes against the guidelines. So they put it down, and the code base is from 2016. So it's very hard to update it. But anyway, what I wanted to say, like, I decided, or let's say every year or every 2 years, I decide to rewrite this whole app. Mm-hmm. And there is this cool technology nowadays called Kotlin multi-platform, which you can actually use to have a shared code for multiple front ends. So what you can do is that you write all your business logic in Kotlin, and then you can share this code with Android and iOS, for example. So this was my case. Mm-hmm. And you can even share some code with the backend. So basically, you just have your IntelliJ open, and you are building your backend. At the same time, you are building your Android client, and you can even build your iOS client. So that's pretty cool. So if somebody wants to build a product, like for me, it worked that I obviously work mostly with Kotlin, and you are able to basically build everything with the Kotlin. I think they also support the web, like you could also build a website. That's not something I'm doing, so I don't have much knowledge in that. Regarding the clients, like everybody is actually slowly using Kotlin, also other big companies, so everybody is fine with Kotlin. And recently I have worked for like one big German bank, and they have a lot of subsidiaries. So basically, we just built one giant code base, which was then used to create, like, I don't know, let's say 5 different banking apps. And then here we have used a lot of Kotlin. It has a lot of modules. And then usually when you have a lot of modules, there is something called like a build.gradle something, where you are defining some configuration for these modules. And you can also use Kotlin to sort of simplify these configuration files. So in Kotlin, you can just write less code, which is amazing. So
yeah, and I think it's one of the benefits that most of the people working with Kotlin highlight, especially those who previously worked with other technologies, that it's more expressive than other languages, and you write less code and achieve more.
Yeah, and the other cool thing is that, like, if somebody is, for example, not into the smartphones, but they are into the cars, there is this thing called Android Automotive, which is basically an OS which is running in the cars. So you can also basically write your Kotlin and deploy it to some car, and then you can see it while driving. So
wow, that's actually a cool idea. You know, since you've been in like the programming space for a while, can you somehow maybe share some of your predictions for the Kotlin? Is it here to stay, or in a few years maybe there will be like the next big thing? How do you think?
It's gonna go. No, actually, I think it's gonna stay, at least in the Android ecosystem or sphere. Everybody's using Kotlin. Also, all the documentation is now written in Java and Kotlin. So I guess it will definitely stay there for the Android part. I'm not that familiar with the with the backend part, but I know that also many companies are now using it on the backend because, like, I don't know, for example, somebody is an Android developer, they need to put him on the backend. So it's actually pretty simple to have this person to work on the backend instead of the front end. So that's one big advantage, I would say. And also JetBrains, the company who created Kotlin, is actually doing good stuff with the promotions, and they do the conferences, and they have podcasts and newsletters, and the community is big. That's maybe also why you are doing these videos.
Yeah, exactly, because we want to promote Kotlin, as a lot of people in our team at DAC are Kotlin developers with great knowledge, and they're willing to share. So we also have a blog with a lot of articles. It will be linked below this video, so that those who are new to the space could learn and get inspired. So yeah, that's definitely one of the reasons we want to be a part of this community, because we see that, you know, there is potential in Kotlin. Probably it will be like, let's say, the next Java. So it's worth learning and it's worth using. So both from the developer's perspective, it's worth learning Kotlin. Now, any like job ad that you see, even if it's not primarily Kotlin developer, it is a nice to have skill. And also for the business owners, for the CTOs, I believe, you know, it's a great technology, and more, you know, the tech giants are using Kotlin. So there must be a reason for that. Yeah, if it's like, you know, Amazon, Google, Pinterest, Trello, or, you know, you name it, and probably, you know, Netflix, like anybody, if they're using Kotlin, it must be like the right choice also for the smaller companies, especially if they want to scale into a bigger one.
Exactly. In Android, like you are actually forced to use some old version of Java. So like with Kotlin, you can just write so much less code. And if you write so much less code, it means like there is less space for your bugs. And this code is also more concise. So it's easier to read. So people can actually jump to the project easier, and they can also get up to the speed faster. So it's like in Android development, I think it's a huge step that we have Kotlin and we are not forced to use Java.
Yeah, and it sounds like a great closing for this short conversation. Definitely, Kotlin is the thing and is going to be the thing in the closest and nearest future. So if anybody is interested in learning more about that, below this video, we're linking to the resources. We're also linking to Martin's profile if you would like to get in touch. Thank you, Martin, for this conversation. And I'm really happy you shared some of your insights.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.